Why? First of all, why? And also, so what if they did, but also they didn't? But also, so what? I'm Austin.
And I'm Cloud.
And this is... We Watch Spookies.
Today's movie is the scariest film of all time, allegedly. Normally called The Exorcist. The Exorcist is a 1973 supernatural horror film directed by William Friedkin, starring Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, Lee J. Cobb, Kitty Wynn, Jack McGowan, Jason Miller, and Linda Blair. How many class synopsis?
An actress's daughter seems to be acting a bit off, and then through a progression of events, she is possessed by some demon. They get the Catholic Church involved, but it's only like one dude. They get an actual experienced exorcist to exorcise the demon, but they seem to fail, so our Catholic dude takes the demon within him and then kills himself.
Somewhat confusing and maybe disappointing. Kind of violates the promise of the premise a little bit. Yeah. It's like, oh, we finally get to the exorcism part and it doesn't work, and then we do it some other way, which...
Well, it kind of works, but the dude, I guess he has a heart attack and dies or something before they can finish it.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's taking, he's taking heart medicine.
Yeah, like the whole time. Because I guess the 12 years ago in Africa one that lasted, what did they say, a month or something like that?
It lasted a really long time.
It did some damage to him. Which I guess that one must have been even worse than this.
Yeah.
Because I guess maybe they might have gone on for a month. They didn't get the chance to. They only went on for, I don't know, part of a day, I think.
Like one evening.
Yeah. Not sure quite how long, but it hadn't worked yet, so. But I guess maybe it was weakened or something, because then he was like, do it! And it did, so. Always a little bit jarring for a moment to see a movie being made in a movie.
Yeah.
Because then it reminds you that movies exist.
Yeah.
At least it was a not the same kind of movie. It was some, like, uninteresting, they're going to tear the college down kind of movie that wasn't actually scary, unless it turns out they were going to tear the college down because it's haunted or something.
Nah,
they didn't tell us why. She says, but why do they want to tear the college down? I don't understand. And he says, should we get the writer? He's in like France or something. So we don't know what the reason is to tear down the college.
All I know is they had like this banner on the school that said something about the military.
Yeah.
I guess they were going to use it as a military installation or something.
Well, I don't know if it was taking place in present time, or if it was supposed to be slightly earlier. Although I guess 73, Vietnam didn't end until 74, right? So it could have been just anytime there's a protest, there's gonna be a little bit of Vietnam protesting, just because might as well. I do actually have to look that up because I don't want to get something like that wrong. Vietnam War 75. Okay. So yeah. So it would have still been going on. Not could have, it was. It was still going on. And college protesting against Vietnam, which I guess was more popular or more widespread in the 60s, still continued into the 70s as well. Really the only thing her being an actor does is not have us have to worry about what anything costs in this, and also have them have a ridiculously oversized house.
Can I get a pony?
And
we'll think about it.
Servants and stuff, so we have ancillary characters to be frightened and questioned by the police and things. Because because we don't. Otherwise, it would be like, wait, they're, and I guess they're in, supposed to be in what, Washington D.C. or somewhere nearby,
Yeah.
which doesn't actually matter either, and they never really, like, we never see like the Capitol building or anything. So.
No. Like this could have taken place anywhere within the states,
yeah.
and it wouldn't have mattered.
It's only just that they tell us this. Which they tell us, they do the lower third telling us where they are thing, and one of them is northern Iraq,
Yeah.
and then the other one is the name of whatever city it is, which is not DC at first. It's like Maryland or something. Georgetown. So, which is part of Washington, D.C. technically. But so we go from naming a country to naming a city. And those are the two title cards. Because it should just say Northeastern America if it's going to be consistent with Northern Iraq.
Well, even that, like, the Northern Iraq part is the only thing of any importance outside of knowing that you're in the States. Because other than, like, this really long set of stairs, it could have taken place in New York. It could have taken place in Miami. Like, the location didn't have any relevance on it other than, like, we have some Italians and some Catholics.
Yeah. Which could kind of be
Catholic
a lot
Italians.
of different places.
Yeah, like,
so.
you can have that anywhere. Like, we're not saying...
There's lots
like,
of Catholic Italians and priests. And now, how was the boxing priest... Where did that come from? That didn't come from this, did it? Because that's a fairly common thing in fiction broadly, and just in popular thinking, is that priests, like, there's a lot of boxer priests, and I don't know if that's just related to that there's a lot of Italian priests, or there's a lot of New York priests, or Chicago, or whatever, wherever it came from. But
you got me
I don't
on
know,
that one.
because I noticed it and I was like, oh, he's a boxing priest. Oh, I don't know where that came from. Maybe it did come from here.
The only thing I could think of was, like, Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, well, there's... Oh, what movie is it? Or is it a movie? Maybe it's a TV show. Where there's a guy hiding in a church, and, like, the police want him, and no, it's Life on Mars, the American version of Life on Mars. The guy runs into the church, and then there's the big tough looking priest that we know somehow is a boxer, and then he's standing outside and he won't let them in, and he says if they try anything then he'll fight them. That's what I was trying to think of. So I was trying to think of it when we were watching it last night, and I couldn't think of it. But she's a screamer, the mom,
Yeah.
and she freaks out
Constantly.
And she takes things to these. I mean, there's plenty to freak out about later on.
I think it's whenever creepy shit is happening, I'm a little more okay with the freaking out. But it's people are talking and they don't seem to believe you, and so you're just like screaming.
I know. Well,
and it's just like, stop. Like, why would people want to? Like, I don't care who you are, but you're screaming at me. I care less.
Well, it lessens the impact of all of the... Once it actually starts to get to the scary parts, they seem less extreme and less scary because she's reacting the same way that she has been since she thought it was a brain tumor.
Yeah.
And so there's no... And actually even lesser stuff than that before.
But
she
it's
just
not
has
a tumor.
such strong reactions, such extreme reactions to everything. And I understand you're a mom and it's your kid and that you care and stuff, but it's just so that she has no level of reaction, really. It's just like everything is extreme and the end of the world and the worst thing ever, and I'm going to scream and I'm going to cry and I'm going to like put my hands over my face and make these faces. And so it lessens the like, oh, she's really scared of the really extreme stuff that's happening because she's been doing it the whole movie. And so it doesn't actually, because otherwise it does sort of build. She doesn't build with the rest of the movie. The movie does kind of build until we get to the actual exorcism. And actually those parts are the most experientially extreme parts for me because she's not there.
Yeah.
So it's just them and they're trying to deal with it and they're trying to hold it together and crazy things are happening and they're trapped in this room. And so then there's nothing but there's nobody that's just outsized reacting to it, because you kind of don't need it, because it is extreme. So we don't need a character to tell us that it's extreme by reacting to it in extreme ways. The doctors are kind of like
slacking.
They're like the police from Halloween. Like, hire the doctors. Will be no help later.
Yeah. Well, it's other than the scene that we get where the little girl's being examined, and they have to stick the thing in her neck.
Yeah.
Like that scene, we get a little bit of kind of acting-ish, because it's like, oh, well, they actually kind of remind me of real doctors. But whenever they're just like, yeah, it's probably a scar on her brain, we might have to cut her up and, remove the scab or whatever.
Yeah.
Look at her coat.
Tissue,
it's I'm a doctor. Just
I'm a
believe
doctor.
me. And I'm like, what is this scene is terrible. And stop screaming, lady.
Yeah.
It's already bad.
But they keep trying the same things, though, is what I mean. They're like, well, it probably could be this. What if we just test for it again? It's got to be this, because we don't have any other ideas.
We didn't test her this way. Turn your head to the left, cough, and then we'll scan.
Now, one thing, though, about those scenes is, in just the 40 years since this has been, we have come a long way in making medical technology less frightening to encounter. Because, like, it's not actually a CT scanner. It's something else, but it's the, like, earlier version of that. And it's what you used to think of as a CT scan or a CAT scan was an MRI, actually, especially, I guess, where it's just this like giant banging sound, and it's all these pieces, and it's just like that is as bad as what's happening to her already at that point.
Yeah. Well,
and it's bad for us because there's a lot of like loud mixing of sound effects in this. There's not really jump scare kind of sounds. There's just loud sounds, and like a sound will be louder than it would ordinarily be mixed. And they do a lot of cheating where they put sound besides dialogue in the center channel, so that the speaking is mixed a little quiet, and so in order to have it loud enough to hear sometimes when they're speaking quietly, then when they put a sound effect there, it's really loud, and that's normally not what you do. So
and it's
I don't really
something they shouldn't.
I don't really
done.
care for it. No, like sometimes they'll do something interesting like pan dialogue, or not in this movie, but you can do interesting things with sound that you don't ordinarily do for interesting effects. But what it ends up just being is difficult and painful and hard to listen to.
Well, like it covers up a lot of the dialogue, so whenever people are talking, you can't hear them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, if I was watching this by myself, I would have just turned on subtitles and then not worried about it because I'll just read it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could have done that, but
now with that scene where because it does stand out really hard when they actually turn on the scanning machines.
Yeah.
But it wasn't frightening as much as it was an annoyance because it's loud.
Annoying, yeah, but just looking at it and like, ooh, this was what like medicine used to be.
No, like here's the thing. For us, yes.
And it's lit in
but
like
for
kind
them,
of a creepy way.
No. If you want it to be effective, you use like, because this little girl, she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know what this machine is, or she's never experienced it before. For keeping it a bit scary, regardless of the time period, they should have like had someone like explain to her that it's going to be a little loud and don't worry about it, because even though you're reassuring her, you're also reassuring us, because it does look a little abrasive. It's all these weird things just floating above her, and if you bring us down to a more comfortable level, when you do hit us with these sounds and all of this crazy shit, it's a larger jump between. Because if it already looks kind of scary and now all it does is be loud, well, like I'm not really feeling anything. It's just, oh, well, it's medical machinery and it's loud.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel the tension or the horror that she's feeling.
It's not the telling us that it's okay. They seem to want to avoid anything like that at any point. Like none of this is okay. We're just going to surprise you with things and have things be shocking, and we're not going to make it better.
Yeah, but it's not a surprise if I'm like already tensed up and ready for it.
Well, no, I don't think it's not. I don't think it's meant to be a surprise necessarily. Even though I said it, it's just supposed to be like something can be shocking without being surprising.
Or, like I would say something that I think did somewhat okay is when our priest is going to visit his mom, and he goes to catch the train, and then there's like the homeless dude right behind him.
Yeah.
And he says something, and it's like, that kind of made me jump a little bit because we don't see him, but we hear him. And then it's just, it's nothing. It's not meant to be scary, but it's like something that would jar you.
But I don't remember exactly what happened immediately before that. But we're already a little bit on edge at that point, even though nothing particularly scary is happening in the subway scene. And so then we're just like, oh, we're still kind of tense from the last creepy thing that happened. And so then when that happens, it's like, wait, who's talking? And you kind of whip around to look at him.
Yeah.
But. Although they do it there too with the sound, the subway train comes by and it's excessively loud. So there's just a lot of loud sounds. Which this is the year before Chainsaw Massacre, right? That was 1974. So I think it was that tended to rely a lot on just things being loud, sort of regardless of context or whether it necessarily needed to be. It was just like, it's loud and abrasive because it is.
Loud does not equal funny. Loud does not equal scary.
No, not necessarily. Sometimes the loud things can be, but they aren't necessarily just because they are. Now, I don't know, maybe there's a kind of Interstellar sort of thing going on here where we're not really supposed to hear what they're saying because it's buried under the sound, but it kind of feels like we're supposed to, because it's not just they're yelling like rocket status stuff to each other that doesn't really matter to us. They're actually talking to each other. It's real story dialogue.
Well, some of it that does get covered up, I guess they're speaking Italian, because it's an Italian family, and like they'll jump between speaking English and speaking Italian to one another. And I can understand we're not really supposed to know what they're saying to each other in Italian because it's not important.
Yeah, and it's not subtitled mostly, so...
Yeah, and so it's like little things like that. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. It's hard to hear, but I can tell that it's not English. So, like, that doesn't bother me so much.
Sometimes the English is buried, too, though.
No.
Now, the way that the doctors bring it up that maybe you should try an exorcism... in what looks like the meeting from of all of the like military leaders and witnesses and stuff in Close Encounters, although that hasn't happened yet for another 4 years. So it's not that, but then they're like, well, maybe you should try this. Like, we don't really believe in it either. And we're going to ask you if you believe in it. And she says no. But, maybe like psychologically, it's really just like, we don't know. We've used all the scary medical equipment we have. We don't know. So try this. And they've already tried even the psychiatrist guy. He goes right to business where he's like, I am now speaking to the person inside of Reagan. It's like, are you? Like, is that how hypnotism works?
Well, it's like, we don't see her be hypnotized. It's just, we just catch him in the middle of him talking to her, and she's supposed to have been hypnotized already. And so, like, I don't know anything about that hypnotism business either.
Well, it's bogus.
Other than it's a psychic attack. It has like 70% accuracy, and it puts your opponent to sleep for depending whatever number of turns, and that's it. That's all I know hypnosis is for. But then, like, she grabs him by the balls,
and then bites him. I think
it
looks like, which is extreme.
Now, every time she does go into her possessed state, like, you can visibly tell there's a difference to her.
Yeah, which is good acting.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so like they do something to her for us to see, maybe not everybody else, but at the same time, is no one else looking at her? Like, can her mother not tell that there's a difference between her?
No, she's too busy screaming and covering her face with her hands. So she can't see anything. She's totally irrational for almost the entire movie.
Now, And that's something that, okay, so she earned like 1 point for using a light switch to try to turn the lights on.
Yeah, that's true.
But she loses like 1,000,000 points for everything else she does in this movie. Like, it's like constant. Like, I almost wanted the mother to die, like her, like she gets flinged out of the window and dies down the steps instead. You know, because it's just so, it's like, okay, so she has the party at her house instead of somewhere else, and then puts her kid to bed, like in the middle of a party while everyone's being loud. Like, that's not very very nice.
What is this party? Because I didn't understand the party.
I guess
I thought
it's supposed to be a
like,
wrap-up party or something.
why are there so many priests there? Because there's like 3 priests there, at least 2. Not the one that we know externally already that's going to be the main character, but there's like 2. There's the one that's playing the piano, and then there's another one. Like, why are there priests at this party?
I wonder if those are the guys that are supposed to be working the because they talk about like, oh, who's that one guy? Yeah, he's like the psychiatrist priest. His office is in the back.
Yeah,
I wonder if they're like associated with the shoot for that time. Like I
don't know.
Like, oh,
maybe
we need church stuff, and we got some dudes who are helping us out.
We don't know that, though.
And we
don't
know
see any church stuff in the movie. We only get that one scene. Which actually, it bothered me that they're literally making a movie of them making a movie, and the guy says, "Cut, that's a wrap," and he doesn't say print.
Yeah.
So, like, are we going to use that one? Or are we not? We don't know. It's the last one. You should probably print it anyway, just in case. And so it's something nobody that doesn't know how shooting on film works or on... actually, they still say it because you still have to know which are supposed to be the important takes for later.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. But it's just weird that they wouldn't bother to just have him say, like, an extra 2 words just to have it be... correct, just in case somebody knows, because I know they know because they're making a movie. So it's not like there's no way to say, oh, they don't know how movies are being made, but like they are. They do. They made a movie. They're making a movie right now, and it's not like it's amateurs at work or something. They're real people making a real movie. So, or real movie people making a real movie. When does the possession start? And is it living in the house or something before? And what does that thing that he digs up at the archaeological site have to do with it? Or does it not? Because he gets it, he's real worried about it when he sees it. And he's like, he's taking it to this other guy that he has the meeting with and also in Iraq. But he doesn't come back to America yet. But then there's before she does anything weird, there's the Ouija board thing that moves, and not like the way that the Ouija board thing moves when you actually use it, which is you each other moving it without realizing, but it like flies across a distance and it doesn't look like anybody does it. So
yeah.
Is that the spirit or whatever at that point? And is it already in Reagan and it's just an escalation thing where it gets worse and worse the longer that it's in her? And where did it come from?
Oh. Well, we get
And did it go into the boyfriend for a brief time to twist his head around, or did she do that with her hands or something?
She probably just did it with her hands.
Because he's on the stairs with his head twisted around, which the only time we ever see someone's head twist around is Reagan, and it's with the spirit in her. So, I'm not really sure. Like, the murder thing is a weird thing. That we never see. Like, she comes home, the other guy comes in the house and says he was killed. He doesn't say he was killed right outside the house.
Yeah.
And so then it's not until the police are like, oh, he was pushed out the 3rd floor window where Reagan is, that I knew where he had been killed at all. So,
well, like, they don't even say that. We just find him. Fell down the stairs.
He was on the stairs, yeah.
We don't know that he was flung out of a window. The detective dude, speculates that because he goes up it and he sees the window.
Yeah.
Which kind of doesn't make any sense why you would speculate it that far under normal circumstances, but whatever.
At least he says that it is, though.
Yeah.
Because he's just going off on wild theories, and he says, oh, this is just speculating. Because he doesn't really have much evidence to go with, so he's just trying to figure it out.
But, why is he doing in the room to begin with?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he was supposed to
Like,
watch her, I guess.
See,
but
like, that's part of, like, the issue I had with the dialogue, because I couldn't understand half the shit everyone was saying.
maybe there was some kind of,
And
like,
so-
she did a voice of something that was interesting to him, and he had to go in to find out what it was, the way that it does the priest's mom or something, so...
Well, like, where was the woman? The servant woman. Not the old one, the young one who comes back and... Like, where were you? It's like, I had to go out. Then where's so-and-so? He's like, I left her with you. With him. Like, what was that? I couldn't understand what she was saying.
She said, she went out for, I don't know what, but...
Exactly.
She went out for, I think she had, like, a grocery bag or something in her hand, so... She went out and she came back, and it was supposed to not be very long, and he was there, but... although he wasn't there to start with, she called him, I think, so that she could go out, she said, but... Because the mom is like, you what? He was here? Why? And it doesn't seem like it was anything she was okay with. And I guess the other, like the butler guy and the like housekeeper woman don't live in the house, or if they do, they were like in their quarters or something because there was nobody there. Because otherwise they seem to be there all the time.
Yeah.
And she says they never have guests, as if it's like, how could one think of such a thing? The servants having guests in the house.
Well, it'd be different if they like had their own little house they lived on. On the property.
They don't seem to.
But yeah, like
it's an excessive house, but they don't seem to have like a separate servant house or anything that's not quite that opulent. So I'm not sure about the possession thing, and it's weird that if it isn't important, that they spend like the first 10 minutes of the movie in the like with the archaeological stuff and him traveling around and being super stressed out and taking his heart pills and with the hot tea or whatever it is. And then it's only, I guess, so we know who he is later, but we don't know who he is except that they tell us that that's who he is when he arrives, because we don't know that he's an exorcist.
Yeah.
And he's not in Africa. Or I guess he is in Africa because Iraq's in Africa, but he's not like in what we think of as Africa.
Yeah.
And we don't see him do an exorcism, and it seems relatively close to the present time.
Well, okay, so I don't think that the dig and the talk of him being in Africa and doing an exorcist, I don't think they're the same thing.
No, well, they do say that he would, like, they know that he would, the last thing they knew was that he was at a dig.
Yeah.
So I think that is where he is right now. Although when he gets a telegram, he's walking through the forest someplace.
No, he was like in Illinois or whatever.
At the dig.
Woodstock. He was at Woodstock.
Oh, yeah, because he had come back, right?
Yeah, he was at Woodstock. Yeah. I'm saying that the original exorcism happened before the dig.
Way before.
And because we don't get anything else for this movie in the whole thing, he finds the face piece or whatever, the small little figure. And
also the medal, the saint medal, which is of a different period, they say, but then that's never explained. Like, how did it get there? What is this?
Yeah.
Is that the spirit like doing creepy things to him ahead of time? Because he gets really nervous about something. Because he seems like he's kind of old and tired, and he kind of holds on to the wall as he walks around the dig. But then when we see him at the cafe just like dying without his heart pills, and when he's so nervous in the office with the guy, it's as if something has happened.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's happened is they found the saint medal. I don't know which saint it is. It's in Latin. I can't read it. And they never say. And then the little clay thing, which then mirrors her little sculpted things that the police look at later.
Does it really?
Kind of. It's a similar shape. It's a similar color. I think it's meant to. He kind of holds it the same way in his hand. So
I don't know what you tell me, because it looked like a turtle to me.
Well, no, it's not the same. But I think it's supposed to. I don't mean that it literally mirrors the physical object, but I think the implication is that it's a mirror of the same kind of imagery. It's presented the same way. He picks it up. He's like, is this hers? He looks at it. He holds it in his hand. It is similar looking, even though it's not the same. And I don't know what either of those scenes are for, because neither of them go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, like he goes and he's doing all that looking around and shit, and he sees the statue. And it's not like he walks
that's
up
right.
to
He
it.
goes up to the mountain to see the
he's
statue.
climbing the ruins, and then he's like, for some reason, we get an audio cut, and he like turns, and there's this statue with the sun behind it, and it's like a demon statue or something.
Which then is on the bed later during the actual exorcism. It shows up for a moment.
Yeah.
When the crazy stuff is happening. And I don't know what's with that either.
And so I'm like, okay, is this supposed to be like a statue for the demon itself? You know, it's like people were worshiping it or whatever.
Maybe.
But they make a line. There's a line in it that says, "Fight evil with evil." Like they say that. It's one of my first notes.
Wait, who says it?
I don't remember who says it. It's one of the things said at the beginning of the movie.
No, I don't remember that.
And I'm like, okay, so what is supposed to be the evil that they're using to fight this evil with?
I don't know.
Exactly. I have no idea.
The whole statue thing is odd because he goes to visit the statue or to look at the statue, and he drives up in his car.
I don't even know if he's going to do that.
Well,
like,
that's what I mean. I don't know.
Like he just seems to run across it
he doesn't
accidentally.
know that it's there, but he's going there for something. He drives up. There's the dudes with rifles. And then he's like, he waves to them and they're like, all right. And then they go away. And then he climbs up the thing and then is surprised by the statue being there. So it seems as if he hasn't been there, but those guys know who he is because they don't shoot him or even talk to him. They don't even question him or anything. He's just like, hey, it's me. And then he goes up the mountain. So I don't know what any of that is for.
Yeah.
And it is kind of not what you expect, where it's just like it's a sunrise and it's like the chanting from a mosque happening through most of it, and it's like, oh, okay, so what does this have to do with anything? This isn't Catholic, and so it's kind of it's not a dichotomy really, but it's a contrast between what you think, oh, exorcism is a Catholic thing, and then all of a sudden we're getting this Islam stuff right at the beginning. It doesn't go anywhere, but it's there.
And it doesn't count if it pays off in another movie. Like that no.
No, I have no idea. I haven't seen the others. This is actually the first time I've seen this one, so I don't know. I don't know if that pays off, and I don't know anything about the others except I know the like production and especially post-production of the second one was a mess of business because the guy who did some of like the early mixing on the first Star Wars mentions it in passing in interviews sometimes where he had to leave that and somebody else finished doing the re-recording mixing because he had to go they got kicked out of the room, I think, out of the mixing room to so that the Exorcist 2 the Heretic could mix, and he worked on it, and he mentions it being big trouble. Now this one was trouble to get produced also. There was a lot of problems with it, and directors turned it down, and it was tough to shoot with the all of the physical effects and everything. Which then of course there's as we've had for several of these, controversy after the fact too, with various accusations of subliminal imagery and Satanism, and although none of that really makes any sense or has any more validity than any of the other stuff that's just been bogus. I mean, it would the guy that wrote it, who wrote the book that it's based on, and also wrote the screenplay, said it's not. There are no subliminal images. If you can see it, it's not subliminal. So there's all like the flashes of the demon faces and things. People are like, it means something. They're trying to brainwash us, and it's like, but if you can see it, it's not subliminal. Subliminal messaging you don't see. Like you see it, but you don't see it. That's the sub part. So it's enough that your brain is like, ooh, but not enough where it consciously registers. Go back and listen to the Agency episode where we talk about subliminal, and the whole movie is about subliminal messaging.
The whole
movie. I mean, you don't know that till, spoilers for the Agency, but it's been on the show, so it doesn't count anymore. And then like various accusations of that Linda Blair was sort of put under duress or abused or something for the purposes of production, with the flinging her around and all the making her use foul language and stuff, which she denies all of, and everyone involved denies all of. So there's no like,
there was a thing talking about like why she was picked, because she actually understood the stuff that she had to say.
uh-huh.
And I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool. You got the mid 70s and you have this 12-year-old and she actually knows and understands what she's saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are things.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime there's something like that, because they did have a puppet. That's what they used for like a lot of the flailing around and when it's like really banging on the bed and some of the floating and stuff, where you had to do stuff that you really couldn't do to a real person or it would hurt them. And they use some doubles and things too. So it's not what it often tends to be is people forget that they were making a movie. Mm-hmm. Like they get caught up in the effect of the movie, which is what you're supposed to do, but then forget that they were caught up in the effect of a movie, not we just watched something horrible happen to somebody. Like everybody reverts to the thinking the train is going to run over them in the Great Train Robbery in the early silent movie days, because nobody had ever seen something come toward the screen that way in a movie. Or ever seen a movie at all, most of the people at that point, because there had been a little bit going on, but it wasn't that commonplace, and so many people seeing a movie for the first time, and so then people seem to forget, like, hey, we're seeing a movie, we've seen a movie before, probably, it's not really real. And I know we talk a lot about how Tom Cruise does it for real and stuff, and so sometimes you do it for real, but you don't just like nobody generally gets like killed in a movie. Like you don't see an action movie and think they shot all those people. But then when it's slightly toned down a little bit, then they think maybe they really did do horrible things to this little girl to make this movie. And that makes no sense, because why? Like, why would you do that? Because there are other ways to do things, and you don't like, unless they're just actual psychos, and maybe every now and then somebody does something a little, I think the making Leo freeze to death and eat raw fish is a little over the line, but at least he agreed to it.
Consent.
But, I mean, yes, consent is everything, and a 12-year-old can't consent to really anything. The effect that it had on people was extreme. There's all of this, like, people like running up and down the aisles because they kept having to throw up, and people passing out like it was a Michael Jackson show, and just like I don't know, that's never happened to me. Like even like the scariest experience that I've ever had in a movie, which this is not, by the way, so the scariest film of all time, which it says it on the front of the DVD case, or the Blu-ray case rather, that it says the scariest film of all time, and it doesn't cite it. What that actually comes from is Entertainment Weekly named it that somewhat recently, actually.
I'm disappointed with
99, I think, was when they did it. Weekly. So it's not like it comes off, if you just look at the case, that they're patting themselves on the back a little bit, like we just decided we made the scariest movie ever. But it does come from an external source. They just didn't put the like, this is who said this, like they normally do if it's a quotation. Box quotes, citation needed. But well, and a lot of it I think comes from maybe if you actually are Catholic and you really like strongly believe all of this stuff, maybe it has a stronger effect than it does to someone like me who's not Catholic. So, I don't think there are demons or anything. I don't think there's any like power to like praying in Latin or throwing holy water on something. So like I don't have any like real world correlation with like, whoa, this could actually happen because there's actual demons and things, which isn't necessary because there's no Pumpkinhead either. There's no like magic of the hotel in The Shining. Those things can still be scary, but there's not the like the effect that Blair Witch Project had, because people were convinced for a brief time that maybe there was some real element to it, elevated it to a level of supposed scariness and importance that it doesn't actually deserve on its own, because people were being lied to in order to produce an effect. rather than just the normal amount of lying that movies do, because movies are entirely lies because they're fiction. And so like that part is okay, but then saying it's fiction except it's not, which is, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre did that also. It's implied very, very strongly that it happened. I did want to, one of the things about the dig scene at the beginning is the guy comes over and says, "We found something at the edge of the mound, small pieces." And I thought, the way that those guys are pickaxing everything, anything you find is going to be in small pieces by the time you find it. Because they're not being careful at all.
No.
They're just going to town with their pickaxes. And then he just like, I'm gonna use your archaeology brush. He just like takes it from the guy's shirt pocket and just starts brushing the thing off. It's like, where are your archaeology tools? Did you leave them over there by the wall you had to lean on to get here? Now the makeup on her and the physical effects and stuff are really good, but the thing that we don't notice that actually is makeup is Max von Sydow, who is the old priest, the actual exorcist, is wearing makeup the entire time because he is not that old. And you don't really notice unless you know that he's not that old and you're like, wait. But then like because he's playing like 70s and he's only like 40 something at the time. So he's under, for almost the entirety of it, heavier makeup than Demon Reagan is, even when they're in the same scenes together, when it's the most extreme stuff at the end. Just because it's like hits his whole head basically. Much more convincing than the gray hair in Herbie on the on the Chinese guy. This may not be the scariest movie ever, but that was probably the worst gray hair ever.
Yeah.
In the Love Bug. So, now, for me anyway, the one of the scariest things, or at least creepiest things, even in those exorcism scenes, is the way the bed looks with all of that like padding and sheets and stuff draped and tied all over it so she doesn't beat herself to death on the bedpost or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's really creepy, the way that looks. And I don't know if it's just something about the way that it affects me or if it is that way generally, but because it's really creepy to me.
Sorry, mate. It didn't really bother me much.
Okay, maybe it's just me. It's probably not just me because otherwise they wouldn't have done it if they didn't think it was creepy to somebody. But it was especially creepy to me. And now that was another one of the controversies, is they said that the way that they were wrapped, that then when the light shines on them, the shadows on the wall are like phallic shaped, and that's like evil, and it's kind of like the Little Mermaid art, or the clouds and Lion King or something, where it's like they're sneaking dicks into things. It's just like, it's a common accusation. It's just like, oh, why? First of all, why? And also, so what if they did, but also they didn't, but also so what? Like, calm down. It's not a big deal. It's a shadow. It's a shadow. It's all it is. And if you can see it, it's not subliminal.
Now, I don't know if it's me or not, but at the end of the movie, does the mother not look like she's an extra 20 years older compared to the beginning of the movie?
Well, kind of. I think she's supposed to, in sort of the way that the priest does, where he's like, now she's been through some stuff, and it's like how almost nobody becomes the president with gray hair, but then like the first 6 months in, they look like they're 65 even when they're not.
Well, it's like, because how can I explain?
She's been through
this?
some stuff now.
Like, with
all that screaming's got to age you.
With the younger priest, like, he already looks rough. So by the end of
boxer.
it, yeah, but by the end of it, it's like he looks bad. But we can understand him. For her, like, it's not that she looks like she has been through a lot. It really does look like she's been aged. You know, like, it's because it's like whenever we see her, she is cleaned up.
Yeah.
like she would have at the beginning of the movie, but she really does. And it's not just like the gray hair, it's like the whole facial structure, the wrinkles.
Yeah, I don't know
it's-
if she's
like, I
if
wanna
she's wearing
know, like-
makeup or not, to age makeup, but yeah, she did look different than she did earlier.
And it's like, I want to know if like both of them were makeup effects, like we have to make her look younger. We're going to make her look older. Like which one was the more realistic for her as the person, as the actor, compared to the actually playing the character. Because that stood out quite a bit for me.
And it's not like we're not told exactly how much time has passed. I don't think it's very much, but it's also not, I don't think they got up out of the room and like immediately back to leave, because I guess they were already, I mean, they've covered all the furniture and stuff, so I think there's been a little bit of passage of time. They can't move where can they go unless some time has passed, because she says they already sold the other house, they're building the new house, so they have to stay here for a while. I should say that as much as I said about how like it's a movie, nobody got hurt, like they did get a little hurt, like there was a little bit of back injury here or there, from not to Reagan or to Linda Blair, but to some of the other people. Well, I guess Linda Blair supposedly did hurt her back a little bit one of the times. And then Friedkin did do a sort of Michael Bay kind of trying to get people to react to stuff by doing things they didn't know were going to happen, like firing blank bullets in order to shock the cast, or telling them that the vomit, which is actually pea soup, would just hit him in the chest and then had it hit his face instead, so that he would react disgustedly for real. So it wasn't totally clean and squeaky, but it was nowhere near the what it's been accused of, at least as far as anybody knows.
What was the point of the cop?
Extra story, I guess. I mean, he's there because there was the murder, but the murder isn't really of any consequence to the story.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the kind of thing. It's like he doesn't even seem to do a very good job filling in a hole. He just seems to be there to ask questions that the audience might have asked.
Yeah.
And I feel that's a bit weak.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess he's probably there because he's there in the book. Because that's one of the things, what we watched and what I'd recommend you watch, and what I think basically everyone except for William Blatty, who is the writer, would recommend you watch, is this. I think even William Friedkin would prefer that you watch the original version, because the 2000 re-release, which is variously called the version you've never seen, or the extended special extended edition, or something like that, has been accused by various people of being not a director's cut as you would normally think of such things, but actually a producer's cut, which is fairly well borne out in interviews with Friedkin and Blatty, where there's like 3 major scenes or main scenes that are the additions, or that are the differences, which are things that they shot and that he wrote, of course, because he wrote the whole thing, and that he was never happy that weren't in there, because they shot them and then they were editing and Friedkin was like, we don't need this, or this doesn't work, or this is harmful or something. And then it never set well with the writer. And so he was always after them to try to put them back in somehow for some other version. It didn't, it took like 30 years for it to happen, and then they finally did. And it's much lesser a version according to everyone except for him. And so it's really just like the writer wanting things in because I wrote it. Like I put it in here and it should be there. And often that's not the case. We've talked extensively over the life of the show about how you make a movie various different times, and you shouldn't, what you thought was going to be in the movie at one point maybe turns out not to be, and it's better not to have it. And in this case, that is a case. Now, it's a little easier to get a hold of the original version now. It wasn't for a long time because there was only the VHS and Laserdisc and 25th anniversary, which was a limited print run DVD and VHS. And for a long time, all you could get was the DVD version has the version you've never seen banner. But now you can get the original, the current release Blu-ray set is both on separate discs, which actually seems kind of unnecessary because it seems like that's something you could branch because it's only 12 minutes of difference and the rest of it is, I think, in basically the same order. It's kind of just like we slotted these scenes in and had to like add the music that go with them and stuff. So it doesn't seem like it requires 2 discs. I mean, even like if you look at the Blade Runner set that's like 5 different versions, except for the work print, which is different enough that it has to be separate. That's all branching. It's all on one disc on the Blu-ray. It's on separate discs on DVD, but it's all on one disc on the Blu-ray, and there's a lot of difference. And there's different audio tracks and things. There's narration in parts and not other parts in various versions. So it's weird that it's on 2 discs, but it is. And it's not unavailable, but it's not super available either. It's kind of I don't think it was like limited. It's not numbered or anything, and it wasn't limited like the 25th anniversary edition was. But it is in one of those like double, it folds out like a book, and there are actually book pages with pictures and like interviews and things there. So it is kind of one of the ones that tend to be slightly more limited than just this version will just be in Best Buy whenever you go to look for it. Because we did have a little bit of trouble getting a hold of one. I had to buy one on eBay because I couldn't really get one anywhere. And most of like if you see it streaming, or like rented streaming, because it's not like normal streaming anywhere, it's usually the extended cut. So you have to kind of look for this one, but you should look for it, I think. Because you mentioned that the cop is not important.
Yeah.
One of the things that is different is instead of having it's over, she doesn't remember any of it, they get in the car, and then he walks over here, the other priest walks over to like the stairs and kind of looks off in the distance and doesn't, and nothing happens. What was originally supposed to happen and what happens in the extended version is the cop walks up and starts talking to him about, like, he starts trying to get him to go and see a movie with him the way that he tried to get her to see a movie with him, or to get the priest to see a movie with him, rather. And then goes off on this, like, the movie that they were going to go to see is the version of a movie with these particular actors. And he says he's seen it the same way that the other priest had. And then he's kind of disappointed, and they walk across the street, and it's hard to hear because the traffic is loud. And so it's another one that's also hard to hear. And it doesn't mean anything, and all it does is totally ruin the momentum of the ending and just tack on this like dumb conversation with the cop that matters to no one and isn't additive at all.
Yeah.
And so there was even more useless police that don't matter to the story. And so I don't know why he's such a prominent part of the story, because he doesn't matter. And he's not there when anything crazy happens ever.
No.
So he doesn't even it's not like, oh, well, we need someone to believe this in some official capacity, so we'll have this detective guy see it, because then he'll believe it, because the doctors don't believe it.
Well, like the most was he was outside looking at the window.
Yeah.
And that was like after they took the break for after round 1.
Yeah.
They took the break, and that's it's like, oh, well, I'm outside now.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't matter. So how do we feel about stars?
I'm going to give it a 3. It's not great, but it's not bad. Just kind of wish there was more.
Well,
or better.
Less screaming.
And yeah, less
screaming. I think I'm gonna say 4. I think because I do like the build of it. I like that the focus of it being like we don't like in Halloween we start with a murder and then it's like the murderer guy is after everyone the entire thing, and so it's like one thing, and then people get killed off fairly quickly, and it's pretty short, so it's kind of compressed. And in this, it's not really like that because we spend a lot of time, except for whatever's happening with him doing archaeology stuff. Things are kind of normal, and then they sort of build into things get weirder and weirder, and things get more extreme. And there is other story going on, the concern about the medical part of it, even though most of that is kind of rough. Watching them like drain the spinal fluid is kind of intense though. And maybe the most violent thing we've actually seen in any of the movies we've watched for this so far, because mostly we don't really see anything, and then we're actually seeing them like stick a needle in, and blood's coming out of tube, and it's kind of squirting here and there. Because like the pea soup going everywhere like doesn't, like I don't buy that as her actually throwing up anything at all. It looks like over thick and cold and not like it doesn't. That's one of the famous things from this, and it doesn't. I don't think it really works. It's one of the physical effects that I don't think actually really works, even though most of them do. And then, I mean, the screaming is a problem, but I understand like she's a parent, she's in trauma. You know, maybe it could have been played a little bit better. And then just building, like the priest story I'm a little more interested in most of the time, just like him having to deal with his mom being dead and wanting out of the psychiatry and stuff. And then once we get to the extremeness of they're trapped in a room and they're doing the exorcism, like that stuff works pretty well. And so I think there is a nice build to it, and it's not, and there's more story than there might be for what the otherwise premise of it is.
Yeah.
And I think most of it works pretty well. What about scariness?
I'm going to give it a 5. I think the parts that do make it, quotations, scary are not the things that if they tried making it scary, it wasn't scary. Like, I feel it's more like an environmental thing. You know? Like, here, we're setting up an environment. The environment is scary. You know, he goes to see his mom, who isn't dead yet.
Yeah,
and he's there.
Like
creepy
that's people in the asylum and things.
Like,
yeah.
that's a little scary, because, you know, you got to think about if you were in that position, and you have these people who seem to have mental instabilities, and they're trying to grab you and everything. It's like, well, you don't want to punch them, because they're just people who can't control themselves, but at the same time they're grabbing at you, so that's
and he's having to like struggle to get their hands off him without doing anything extreme.
The voice changes of the demon, like that. It's like little bits and pieces like that. Like, 'cause like some of the stuff, like the pea soup, I'm gonna agree with you. It's like yeah, it's kind of cool, but nah, that don't really get me. The spinning of the head effect, because it's so close, and the way that shot is set up, like that's like, thank God this is a movie, because that's painful.
Yeah. Well, and that's when, you know, it doesn't affect me that much. I mean, it is really uncomfortable to look at, but it doesn't. It's that's not one of the things that I'm like really afraid of. Other Tyler from the Hurricane Heist episode, like that's one of the things that really gets him is like unnatural movements of people's bodies. So like, you know, elbows moving the wrong direction, you know, a lot of like the J-horror kind of stuff, you know, the weird skittery stuff.
Like that bitch is walking on her hands and feet, like upside down and backwards.
Yeah, that
on the ceiling. I'm noping out of this situation right now.
Yeah, well, that's one of the other things that's missing from this version is the crab walk down the stairs, which is much remembered and much talked about, and is iconic in a way it doesn't deserve, mostly just because it was unavailable for so many years, because there was some vague public awareness that that scene existed, but no one had ever seen it because it was cut out of the movie. And so it wasn't until the 2000 version came out that anybody really saw it in its whole form. But when you look at it, it doesn't look very good. Like, there's no weight to it. The way that she walks, it doesn't really look good. It's not actually effective or scary. And so it's when you think about, oh, like if she's walking upside down on her hands, like then you can imagine it much more scary than it actually looks. It doesn't look. It kind of looks goofy when you actually see it.
Yeah.
But there are other movies that things like that are in, and they're always unsettling. Whether it's one of your particular fears or not.
People crawling out of spaces that are way too small for them to fit in.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't enjoy watching like contortionist type people or anything like that. Kind of stuff does kind of weird me out. But
that's a nice box you got there. Wonder what's in it. Opens box, hair comes out of the sides, like closes box, lights on fire. Nope. No, thank you.
I think with the intensity of the actual exorcism scenes, a lot of which is brought up considerably by my particular fear of the like wrapped in sheets bed frame. I think I might bump it to maybe no, I can't do it as 6. I guess it's a 5. I can't do 6. I can't. I was going to, but I'm like, no, I wasn't scared enough of it, of enough of that. So we have to leave some scale for things that are scarier. Assuming, of course, such things exist, I guess. I mean, I know there are things that scare me. So, I mean, we're not watching any spider movies or anything. So,
Lava Antula.
Yeah.
Spiders made of lava.
Yeah, I bought you that DVD, but I'm not watching it with you.
Boy.
That one's for you. That we will not be seeing that one in March. Like, we will not. Like, you might hear about it on the show. It might get mentioned during one of like the opening show parts where he talks about the things that he's watched. But it will not be getting an episode. Like, spider movies are out. Because I can't deal with it. So yeah, I guess 5. Is that the highest that
so far
we've given things so far? Yeah. So unless the scariest film of all time is only half of the possible scale, excluding like movies that deal directly in our particular phobias, then does not qualify. And did not feel any didn't feel like I was going to throw up at any point. So these people in there like running up and down the aisles
or
trying to get to the trash. No fainting at all. I mean, I've never fainted ever anyway. I've only been unconscious once, and that's because I hit my head against the ground flying off of a merry-go-round on the playground when I was like, I guess I was like 5 or 6 or something. And I remember like we got it, like a bunch of us, like we're doing the thing you're not supposed to do. And this is the old style ones where they didn't have the like governors and the bearings. So it's just a bearing in there, and like as fast as you can spin it, it'll spin.
Yeah.
And so you just get
the steel rockets.
Put one of you on it and like hold on to the bars in the center, and then get the other kids pushing it as fast as you can. And you take turns doing that, and like I lost hold of the bar and went flying off of the thing when it was spinning really fast, and like hit my head against the ground, and then woke up like 5 minutes later, like laying on one of the tables in the cafeteria in the school. So that's the only time I've ever been unconscious by like some external force, and I've never fainted. So I guess I've been like close like other people where you get lightheaded if you stand up real fast, especially if you're sick or something. Mm-hmm. But I've never actually like gone over the line and fallen out. So no almost fainting, no almost throwing up, none of that. So I kept my pea soup down.
The power of Christ compels you.
Nope.
The power of Christ compels you.
Nope.
The power of Christ compels you.
Nope. It doesn't. I don't feel very compelled right now. No. We do hope you'll be compelled next show to listen to it. And that's all I have to say about The Exorcist, and we'll see you next time.
Later. The power of Christ compels you.
Nope.